So today I'm going to tell you a story about my own anxiety and talk a little bit about how that relates to the work that I've chosen to do and how I got into what I'm doing. So I didn't realize this until several years into my career, but I got all these advanced degrees mostly because I was pretty sure I was a hack and never going to really amount to anything or be good at anything at a deep level. And I succeeded in life and did a bunch of things in my life that some people would refer to as successful, but I never really believed it. Inside there was always a nagging sense of doubt and the idea that I needed to do more and be more and kind of be somebody. You know, I didn't really get that. So anyway, I got a job. I finished my master's degree, and I ended up getting a job at basically one of the better treatment centers on earth for trauma, which is what I really wanted to study. Because that's the if you ever do want to treat anxiety, you really have to learn trauma first. Almost all anxiety, the systems you learn to treat anxiety and to work with anxiety, they're all very much related. You have to learn them very well in order to treat trauma. So it worked really well. So anyway, I had this job. I had a great job at a place, and it's like literally considered to be the best in the world. Okay, and I kept looking over my shoulder, waiting for them to realize that I was a hack, that I didn't belong. Someday somebody's just going to walk into the office and be like, "Struve, you're gone." Okay, so I lived in that fear a lot of the time. And then one day, my boss called me into his office and he said, "Hey, the person who's supposed to run the 2 o'clock group is gone. She got sick. I need you to fill in for her," because I didn't have anything to do that afternoon. I said, "Okay, great." So I went and I walked into the room and I sat down. And I sat down and I looked around and I realized that I was in front of people who were sort of famous, actually, really well known in their particular field, well known enough that you may or may not know the name. And they were what they call a high-profile referent. And then the other thing I realized is that the person sitting across from me was also a substitute, the co-therapist. And so now it was time for me to run what's called an amends process. And this is where the parent, in this case it was a parent, came up and talked to the children and said, "These are the things that I apologize for. This is what I've done to harm you." So she came up, she sat down, and she started talking. And she was about 4 sentences in, and she just started laying into these girls and blaming them for a second. And it was like horrifying. It was really, really scary. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew that this wasn't right. So I stood up. I said, "You got to stop." She ignored me. I said, "You got to stop." She ignored me. So I stood up and I stood between her and the girls. And I said, "You have to stop. You cannot do this. This is not what the purpose of the exercise is, and you're wrong." And she stood up and she said, "You know what? This is a bunch of crap. This treatment facility is crap. You're crap. And I got sweaters older than you, and I'm leaving. I'm out of here. I'm checking out." And then another kid in the same group stood up, and his mom said, "You know what? She's right. This place is terrible. We're checking out too." And they both walked out the door. And so it was Friday afternoon. I went back to my office, waited for the call, waited for security to come escort me to the door. Nobody came. Went home. Monday morning I came in and I thought, okay, this is going to be it. And sure enough, right after the morning meeting, my boss brought me into his office. He sat me down and he said, "Listen, if somebody comes and wants to discharge on Friday afternoon, you call me before they get to my office, because I will leave and I will let somebody else handle it. But I'm not interested in sitting here and listening to them complain for 2 hours and then go." I thought for sure I'd get fired. I didn't get fired. And what was really interesting about the experience for me, and this is what I teach a lot of therapists. I've done a ton of therapist training and education over the years. And I always tell my therapists, I say, one of the best ways to walk through your fear of something bad happening, is for something really bad to happen and for you to realize what it was. For you to get the idea like, oh, it happened and I lived. It happened, I'm still employed. It happened, and then what? Nothing. Okay, so that's if you want to talk about anxiety, because that's ideally the purpose of this group, kind of what we're doing here. One of the things that we do with anxiety at times is the anxiety allows us to make, to use the cliche, mountains out of molehills. So the skill I would teach today, it's kind of in part 2 of my favorite skills for dealing with anxiety. It's called playing the tape forward. And it's about really sitting down and accepting the worst case scenario as if it is happening and has happened. Okay? What's going to happen? I'll get fired. And then what? I'll lose my license. And then what? I won't be able to make a living, and my wife will leave me, and my kids will leave me, and then I'll die homeless and alone. Okay? Well, probably not, actually, for one thing. And when I say it out loud, I realize, oh, that's kind of silly. That's not really what's going to happen. None of that probably will happen. And that by itself will allow the anxiety to diminish. And then the other thing I can do is just really deeply accept that fear is normal and part of me. And if I can accept the consequence, if I can accept, maybe I will lose my job. I'll get a new one. Maybe I will lose my job. And then what? Well, maybe I'll lose my stuff. Well, then what? Well, then I'll get a new job and some new stuff. So that playing the tape forward can be a very helpful tool for anxiety. It's been helpful for me. I hope it can be helpful for you too. If this video is helpful for you, you can push the like button. It looks like this. It's a thumb up. Okay? Or you can leave a comment underneath if you have a question. You can send me a direct message on Facebook if you have a question about this or anything else. I also have WhatsApp and a bunch of other things that I will share at some point in the near future. And then, if you wanted to share this to your timeline, that would work too. Thanks for paying attention. I know there's a lot to look at on Facebook, and you made it all the way through on this one. I certainly appreciate it, and I really hope it's helpful to you. Have a great day. Where's that finish button?